A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Themba Mnguni. Such an honor to have you on the podcast. I remember casually just inviting you, hoping you'd say yes, and I'm really, really honored that you are here and you honored the invitation to make yourself available to have this conversation today. Like I said, when I invited you, and in that mini breakdown as well, with this platform, what I'm hoping to achieve is to create sort of this virtual community, right? Of scholars, students as well, to have these conversations about navigating postgraduate studies, which is also the name of the channel, Navigating Postgrad with Sims. So I'm hoping to have this space exist as this archive of conversations, right? About different PhD journeys, different master's journeys, different honors journeys as well along the way. I'm also conceptualizing a series just on different careers in the communication and media industry, right? So I'll be speaking to a few people who hold communication qualifications, media qualifications, to speak to them about industry as well. And you should know that you are one of those people that are actually going to qualify for a future episode to speak to us about the industry part of things, right? But I know you are in academia now, so we're going to focus on the academic part right now, which is your PhD journey. So thank you very much for joining us. It's really, really such an honor to have you.
I think I should say first, thank you so much, Prof, for inviting me into your platform. It's quite very exciting, to share the platform with you. I think for the longest time I've been reading your work, Now
Thank
it
you.
actually felt so good, to have a nice sit down with you, and navigate the postgraduate journey together. I think this is quite a very important concept, or a very important offering for many postgraduate students, be in South Africa or abroad. We need such platform or avenue to really help guide, mentor, and help, postgrad to find their way in the midst of the storm.
Yes, yes. And I love the midst of the storm part as well, because the PhD journey can be a bit of a storm.
Yeah.
But like I also said in other episodes in conversations with other guests, that sometimes within that storm there were beautiful moments. I know for me personally, there were really beautiful moments, very enjoyable moments. And I remember for me, even one of the things that was strange to me was while I was analyzing, right, towards when I was writing up, it was so enjoyable where I felt so scared that I think I'm doing something wrong. Why is this so great? Why is this going so smoothly? I might be messing
That's
up
so
because
true.
why wasn't I feeling depressed? Why wasn't I feeling down all the time? Why didn't imposter syndrome get me too much there towards the end when I was writing up? So I don't know on your side, but I had such good moments as well within the storm of the PhD.
I think I began to enjoy my storm when I was doing this collection. Finally, I felt that this is a real thing, I'm not just doing literature anymore. I'm not just reading and typing up and doing some analysis of literature. But when I began to actually do the interviews, transcribing those interviews, it felt like joy in heaven,
Yes. Yes.
It was now the real actual work has actually begun. But just like you, I think for me, the most fun part now is when you see everything coming together, when you do your analysis, when you marry, all the literature, the theories, the discussions regarding the subject and how everything basically play out together. For me, that was quite very exciting. It felt like that now I'm actually doing a PhD, I'm not just reading and just writing literature anymore.
Yes, yes. And although the reading part it comes with the job, right? So
Of
we did
course.
have to do quite a lot of reading. Yeah, and I remember reading almost a week till like a week or so before submission. I was still reading, updating literature reviews. So I suppose comes with the job as well, and with the choice we made to do the study. But I'm so glad
Definitely.
someone relates to the fact that there are such beautiful moments on this journey, and I'm hoping to also
Yes.
capture some of yours as well as you relate to us about the PhD. But then I just want to use this opportunity now to just humanize the PhD journey, please, and just
Yes.
let people know about the human, the person behind this great study that we'll delve into a bit later on. So if you could
Yes.
walk us through a bit of just your own history, who you are. You can just focus on the academic part, the professional part of your journey. And like I say, please feel free to go as far back as like primary school. I love all those
Okay.
wholesome details to really humanize who Themba is on his academic and professional journey up until this point where you are right now.
Yes, for a moment, I thought, well, nobody knows me. I'm not famous, and you're putting me on a spotlight against my thoughts. Well, I mean, to put it quite very frank and simple, I'm from a very small community that's called Devon in Pumelelo. It's a small township within Gauteng, basically on the outskirts of Gauteng. That's where I was born, bred, and battered, Obviously, my mom and my dad as well, they're from the very same neighborhood as well. I'm from a family of five siblings, My one sister, she's late, and now we're four siblings, and obviously, my mom and my dad, they're both late, so obviously, we left with, four siblings, but we are quite a very tight knit all together. Now, where it all began, it all began in a very small little primary school called Nomnekane Primary School in Devon. The school is just like a walk away from our home. You know what I mean? Basically, I did not even have to wake up in the morning to go get on a shuttle to go to school. I was just
Yeah.
walking like 3 minutes. I am already in the school. And I was always quite very fascinated when I was young, by the name of the school, Nomnekane Primary School, obviously meaning that no matter how headed you are, you will study, you will learn, you know what I mean? And I used to think, oh, well, but I'm not hard-headed, I'm soft-headed.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't have to, have that notion going on in me. But obviously, that's where everything was really grilled down to me altogether. I think when I was in the Namzikane Primary School, I had very wonderful, primary school teachers. I would recall quite very well Mr. Dlamini. I think
Yeah.
he used to teach me English. He'd really, speak quite very high of me at that time, if I recall very well. Like he saw a bright picture, he just saw something that I never saw actually of myself. I remember he was saying to my uncle, we better make sure that you guys start saving, money aside because this little young man is gonna go far and go places, you know what I mean? And I had my other, history in geography teacher, that was Mr. Mota. I'm told
Mm.
that he is late. May his soul, beautiful soul, rest in peace. I mean, that's where where it all began. That's where the seed was actually laid, And I think for me, another thing that also helped me a lot, I'm from the family, background where, in which family, I mean, education is actually highly valued, you know what I mean? My mom was late and her sister in Quebec, they used to kind of like sell this dream, to us about, us having to go to school, particularly with myself and my cousin Petwal, So basically we were like the young, upcoming and promising people who will change the course of the family, So basically from a whole entire background, I always had this nourished foundation that I would go to school, I would study, you know what I mean? And obviously, we kept to it. I kept to it that, as my mom said it, as my teacher said it, that I have to, keep to it, and also my dad as well played quite a very big background, in developing my academic interests or like interest in education. Remember when I would come back from school, I find him, having cut out these little puzzles that I would have to complete by myself, or sometimes
Yeah.
he'd help me. Or sometimes he'd cut out these little pictures on the magazine, the drawings that I need to color code and all of that. But most important, the most important thing that he used to do actually was just to cut this little or keep the puzzle word for me from Daily Sun at that time, I remember. And also we used to have like a Jet Club magazine,
Jet. Yes.
back in those
Yes.
days,
I
you know what I
remember
mean?
that.
So,
Yeah.
so my dad, kept me going. And I remember I used to get so mad and say, oh, why is it doing that? I'm from school, I'm already tired. And yet, on top of that, I must come back and complete this with him, helping me out, cut me some slack, Dad, come on. But not
No.
knowing that actually, he was actually, helping me, to actually nurture and to harness that talent. And later
Yeah.
on, for my secondary education, I went to the only high school that we have at that time, and it's still the only high school even now, called Zeketele Secondary School. It is
Sure.
still within the very community of Impumelelo in Devon, and I think the rest, as I say, is history, But for me, like I had a nice, good foundation and grooming from my primary school. My mom and her sister as well, they were quite very vital to me. My dad as well played quite a very, very important role. And later on, I had family coming on board. I had my brother coming to support me as well. I had my cousin sister, Mama Slilene coming on board as well to support the vision. I think perhaps to just sum it up, somebody helped me to understand the vision,
Yeah.
and later on in my life, I had foot soldiers that helped me to turn that vision into a reality. I had, key soldiers, was my brother and also my cousin sister, Slilene. They were behind this little brand. No, at a very early young age, And as I say, that was my primary school education and my secondary school education. And I used to get mad at my mom and say, why had I never been to, a preschool? I don't get. I actually don't get it. Why have I never been to a preschool? You know what I mean? And you're gonna just rock me up into to primary school. I'm not prepared. No, but she said to me, "Oh, no, don't worry, you're smart." So I think I was always told that I'm smart, but something that I didn't want to entertain because I don't want to get dismayed by that. You know what I mean? I believe that I had to
Sure.
actually work hard in it, and not just go with this whole PR stunt that is smart. So basically, in short, I hope I have captured the question that I'm from a very small community in Devon.
Yeah.
Key people that played, the role in harnessing, love for academia, even though they were not academics themselves. Like my mom and my dad, they were never academics. Even I think I'm the first gen in my family to, to go to university, first gen of everything. You know what I mean? So I hope it does not end with me. I just had
Yeah.
unlocked that door, and I hope that it stays open for the longest time.
We shall indeed hope so. But it sounds like a solid, supportive foundation as well.
Yes, indeed.
That really carried you to where you are now. So I think me knowing you was then in your varsity part of life, because I
Yes.
think I met you 15, 16 years ago or something. 16
Yeah.
years ago, maybe, when I started university, that's when I met you at Wits University. But it's good to know that you had that great foundation. And then today, then you are now a colleague of mine at we work for the same institution. So you're now solidly back into academia.
Yes.
Professionally, Themba, what were some of the roles you had, work-wise, industry-wise, after varsity? Because I know you were at Wits for actually your entire qualifications, just like me. You did all your
I'm a
qualifications
vet through and
just
through,
as
hey? Through and through, I'm a vet. Oh,
I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know how I feel. I don't know how to feel about people like us who just stayed at the same institution throughout. But it is what it is, and it really
Yes.
helped. With the foundation, an academic intellectual foundation for me personally, really helped me. So I don't regret having stayed in the same institution. Be that as it may, during your time after maybe your qualifications, was there work in between?
Yes, yes.
Um,
I think in 20, even though I might not recall the year quite exactly, I think I had an instance, I think it was 2011, I then did my BA, did my honors, then obviously took a gap, and went, to stay at home because, I was still job hunting and job searching, you know what I mean? And I got involved in community development. I was involved in community structures, and obviously I was one of the community stakeholders through some stakeholder office at that time. And and obviously, I spent a year, at home trying to immerse myself, in community development issues, and I think I played a key lead role in terms of like, administration, of communities, stakeholder structure that was existing at that time. And we're working quite very close with the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. But a year later, now within the very same course of the year, I mean, somebody just said to me, I mean, why are you wasting your time in here? Go look for work, and mind you, that just graduated, had honors. I'm full of fire. I'm from social sciences, humanities, all the things that I'm studying throughout. I'm not applying them in my community. And then on the other hand, there's kind of like pressure to say, go find some work. I remember my dad when he was still alive at that time. When I was on the gap year, he said to me, "Oh, well, we thought that things will get better since you went to school, you graduated, and you'd help out at home financially, but now." You're not working as well, things are not getting better, and so I had that little pressure to just go back, to perhaps maybe, go try do masters, but I think when I was back the following year to do my masters, then there was I think it was in March, and there was a post from the SABC looking for the interns, and
Yeah.
that post was shared by, Dr. Wendy Willems, so if anyone is interested, there's some internships in the SABC, please do apply. I think that's when, therefore, then, had an opportunity to then go to the SABC. I think it was in 2012. Then I did my internship, with the SAPC, and that's where kind of like I've gained my first, industrial experience or industry experience and knowledge of the industry, you know what I mean? And when I was doing my internship with the SAPC, I had a full scope view of the industry in terms of television, in terms of radio, in terms of publicity, in terms of marketing, in terms of digital, in terms of like
Yeah.
outreach, So basically, my whole world view of media, it began to actually make sense, you know what I mean? And I had my good entry into the industry, in 2012 when I had the chance to actually go to the SAPC and do the internship. While on the other hand, I was actually doing my master's, and also I was
Yeah.
involved in the Department of Media Studies. We had a blog called Express Impress. I'm not sure if
I
you know about
remember.
it.
I remember. I do. I do.
Yeah, so with some of the
I've always
key,
wanted to actually write something for them. I think I ended up not writing, unless I did, but I
please,
forgot.
you
But
better
it
put
was such
something
a
together.
lovely, it was a
Yes,
lovely space. I
yes,
remember wanting to actually write for them, but I,
yes.
I ended up never doing it. But I loved reading the stuff that were on there as well.
Fantastic.
It was lovely.
So we were one of the key founding members for that blog, and so obviously, again, I think when Dr. Wendy Willems, when she created the idea, she just wanted us to have an experience as well, of how to run
Yeah.
a blog and how to actually apply what we're learning in our modules into this wonderful project as well. So, I mean, for me, therefore, that Express and Press, was a wonderful, good, startup as well that gave me industry experience in terms of writing for a platform. For the longest time, I've been writing for academia, for assessment, and for all of that, and for research. And now through, Express and Press, we then began to learn to write for a platform, And I think when I got into the SAPC during the period of my internship, it was very easy for me then to kind of like, because now, I mean, no, it wasn't easy. It was very difficult because now, if I came into the industry with an academic knowledge, academic experience, and not having the industry, experience and knowledge, and I have to do a lot of toning down. It took me time to actually tone down, you know what I mean? So
Mm,
that I could
mm,
match, you know what I mean? So that, what is up in here could make sense to everybody. And for me,
yes.
when I joined the industry, that was a bigger struggle, as to how do I tone down, how do I marry both world, the academic world and obviously the industry itself, But obviously that's when I had my real experience in 2012. I think in 2013, the internship period then ended, and then I had a small stint then in Damelin. So I got a chance to actually, go lecture in Damelin in Victoria City. I was teaching journalism and media studies, for a year. And within the very same period in 2013, I then, had an opportunity to freelance for the SABC education,
Yeah.
I freelance, as a head writer for civic education and health slot, so basically, that with SABC education, they have slots in what you call the PBS radio stations. I think the 11 or 12 radio stations, and
Yeah.
there's a civic slot on democracy, community development and civic issues. And there's a slot as well on health and all of that. So I was a writer. So now obviously I've learned how to write for platforms. Now obviously I was writing for radio, radio, so I was a head writer and the head script writer and the head researcher for Peter Slot. And Sureka Singh, she was my mentor, gave me a breakthrough, in terms of writing for radio as well. She said, Themba, well, your internship is done, but I mean, you have such good research skills. You can write, you're a beautiful writer, please come write for me, for my civic slots. And later on, another colleague joined in at the SABC education, and she also then asked me to write for her slots, Cookie Mona. She also asked me to write for her slots, in radio, it was a health slot, So basically then you see, even though I was no longer full-time in the SABC, I was now teaching full-time in Feminine, but still though I had that industry kind of like present, through radio.
Yeah.
And I think in 2014, then I had the chance, to then go back to the SABC full-time. And I had a very wonderful, the manager, Dennis Swart, he took me in, he had faith in me. He gave me so much willpower to do so much within the wing of the SABC education, and I think in terms of like my industry, experience, I have a very quite strong, formidable experience because, I started through the ranks of being an intern, and I grew through the ranks, from an intern to become like a head writer and researcher for radio, PBS radio. I was then back as an assistant commissioning editor in 2014. And I think in 2020, then I was had a promotion to becoming a commissioning editor. So basically, I've been in the industry since 2013. And it's been quite a very exciting journey. You know what I mean? And finally,
Sounds like, yeah.
yeah, and finally, for me, because my biggest struggle, I remember when I was still a student, is that how are we going to apply these things that we learn in class to the industry, and it's a mission to actually, bridge that gap, you know what I mean, and I'm glad that throughout my experiences within the industry, I was able to bridge the gap, and I am now able to connect the worlds that I love so much, academia in the industry, I can now marry the two together, and without having to kind of like to compromise one over the other, So that has been my, professional experience and my also, upbringing within the industry as well.
And what an honor actually for you to then have that opportunity from early on to be able to marry your passions, the academic side and the love for industry as well. And you're right, you are significantly experienced then within the industry. And I love that you had this long-term relationship with the SABC, which then I suppose is unsurprising then that your PhD study actually also centered the SABC quite significantly as well, which we'll discuss as well later on.
Yes.
But let's actually use that as a segue, your journey there with the SABC as well, as a segue to the PhD. Like, what planted the seed to start the PhD? What moment was it? What person was it? Or did you just have an epiphany? Was it a dream? What was it that actually planted the seed for you to be like, okay, I'm doing this thing. I'm registering for the PhD and I'm doing this thing.
You're never going to believe this. I think when I did my master's, I didn't have a nice, good experience when I was doing my master's. I had issues with my supervisor, and long story for another day, So I had to do my master's twice, because the first supervisor that I had, he cost me a lot, and then obviously the university has to take care of that. And I got in the new supervisor, and I have to redo my whole entire, master's. So, I felt that I spent so much in just one master's, you know what I mean? And I thought that, well, I'm never gonna do anything. I had my fair share. I was bruised. Wounded.
I can imagine, yeah.
You know what I mean?
That
little pride is now gone. It's actually no more that passion, that fire is actually gone. It's vanished, And I think what helped me, was that now when I was doing my second round of masters, I had quite a very wonderful supervisor, Professor Glenda Daniels. She's with the West Media Studies Department. A very renowned journalist in the country, and scholar as well. So she took me in, for my masters, and she began to heal all the wounds that I had incurred, on the first round of my masters. She made the journey quite very, easy to transverse, you know what I mean, and easy to navigate as well, and it helped me to heal in a way, but I had already made a conclusion that I am never gonna do anything ever again after this masters because I had been to a hellhole because of this masters, and
Imagine we almost lost such a great academic soldier. I'm so glad.
you know what I
I'm so
mean.
glad you decided to change your mind. But
You know
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
sorry
mean.
to cut you there. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You can chip in it whenever. Yeah. So I think I then took a gap, for masters for like 5 years until one day I walk. No, no, no. I went into Campus Square, in Auckland Park, right? And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I can't remember which shop was I at. Maybe it was at Truworths or my camps. But somewhere there, when I was coming out, and I think I then bumped into Dr. Themba Daniels, and it's good to say hello to her. It's been a while, how she's doing and all of that. And she asked me, "Are you done with your PhD?" I like, "Me? PhD?" I said, "No, I'm not even doing a PhD." She said, "No, you must go do your PhD. You had a good master's, no? You got a good grade for your master's. You had a nice good review for your master's, so you must do a PhD." I think she's the one that, really make me to rethink PhD because I mean coming out from the masters, I was so bruised. I don't think that I would have energy to do a PhD, But Dr. Glenda Daniels, she dragged me out of that, hellhole,
We are
you
so
know,
we are so
of
grateful. Yo.
self-doubting,
Yeah.
self-doubting so that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy to do a PhD. Because I mean, I had a horrible, experience when I was doing my first round of masters, in which I failed, because I was neglected and ignored by my supervisor throughout the whole entire journey, and putting so much effort and it going to waste. So basically, I carried that little pain, and so Dr. Glenda Daniels, she was a godsend, to say, go do your PhD, and it affirmed that I can do it, you know what I mean? And then from there, I believe that, that seed then that spark then came back again to life, and I found myself, applying for PhDs, putting together the expression of interest, you know, I had my colleague, but the thing is, even at work at the SABC, everyone was telling me, why are you not doing a PhD? Why are you not doing a PhD? You already have your master's, you're smart, all of that. But I didn't think that I was worthy of a PhD,
Oh
not as well
man.
that I was even deserving because I failed masters, So like you tend to judge yourselves quite very harsh and very hard, But then obviously Dr. Glenda Daniels, came through and changed that whole worldview together. And now my PhD journey is quite very interesting, but I will allow you to drive the conversation.
Um, oh no, no, no. Yeah, yeah. We are very interested in that PhD journey then. But we're so grateful then to
Yes.
Dr. who's now Prof. Glenda Daniels then. Because imagine if that conversation at Truett's Campus Square didn't happen, we were not gonna have you back in the academic world in this
Never at
way.
all.
So
Never
we're
at
so
all.
glad to her then to have had you sort of reignite that passion that you have for academia. Then something interesting for me then is then when you eventually did come for the PhD, you then carried it out within the Department of Film and Television, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because
Yes,
then you went to WAZOA, the Wits School of Arts, instead
yes.
of coming to the Wits Media Studies Department. That how did that come about?
Yeah, because now remember, I've done my master's, sorry, my master's, honors and a Bachelor of Arts with Media Studies department, and I could
Yes.
tell that in terms of like the approach is quite very much more your academic approach, you know what I mean? And obviously there's a big gap between the academic approach and also the industry approach, right?
Yeah.
And I felt that if I could go to the best school of film and television, that's where they'll be able to kind of like understand the nitty-gritty of the industry, you know what I mean? And also I was persuaded by, Dr. Yolo Goba as well. I was headhunted.
I can't believe that. I do know Dr. Koba, so I believe that.
Yeah. So also, I was Unheard as well, And also, I just wanted to step outside my comfort because I've been with me in this for a longer time, you know what I mean? And I felt that if I can just venture into a new discipline, but clearly the topic that I like, I'm sure I can learn so much, you know what I mean? And also, get to have a different approach as well, outside the media studies approach, which is quite very
Yeah,
much more theoretical, discourse space, right? But obviously when when you move into like a film school, your approach is very much more hands-on. Like, you
yeah,
bring that industry touch, that industry's, look and feel and all of that. So, and that's why then I felt it quite very important that, for my PhD, I need to be grounded, grounded on the praxis, being grounded, on the practical, approach of the industry, which really helped me a lot. And I had quite a very wonderful, supervisor as well, Dr. Yologoba. Oh my God, he went all out, to make sure that fasting, my topic makes sense. You know what I mean?
yeah.
He guided me throughout the whole entire journey. And here's a funny, part that you don't know. So before I went to vet for my PhD, I tried to do it for a year at UJ, but oh my good Lord, I couldn't do it over there. It was a mission.
Wow. I had no idea. Oh, I didn't know you had started it elsewhere initially.
Yes, I
Wow.
tried because I felt like
Yeah,
I need a breath of new fresh air, right?
yeah, yeah,
So I'm like, oh well, let me just go up and probably I'll navigate the space very much more easy. But obviously, it was quite difficult because I was doing it full time, and well, on the other hand, I was working full time. And man, I'm just now kind of like starting my PhD journey in a new institution. I have to know where things are, and I had to know where the libraries are. I had to know the referencing system. I had to know where to
yeah,
find which book where and how. And it became quite very too much for me. You know what I mean? Because obviously I would knock off from work and then go to UJ to actually do some work. But again, it was such a mission. And also to use their database, like their online repository, it was also a mission as well. I'm like, well, I want to be convenient right now. I want some conveniency. Let me just go to Word, and at the time when Dr. Yolo approached me. I think I was on a break, at DJ because it was just too much for me. I just couldn't just do it there because nothing was making sense. I struggled to find books in there, and when Dr. Yolo approached me, and I said, well, I want to come back home, because I'm familiar with first, first and first. I know the system. I know where to find the literature. I'm familiar with the library. I'm familiar with the resources, So it was an issue of convenience because, mind you, I was working full time and also, doing this full time, and also vowed to myself that I am going to finish the PhD in the recommended time. I will not go over and abroad, and hence I needed to have that conveniency, And yeah, so in short, going back into your question as to, why they change, why, a School of Film and Television and not media studies, I felt that I just needed to have a new change, change is
yeah.
good. They always say that, right? Change is good. So I needed to feel good because I've changed. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, certainly. No, change is certainly good, which is why I
Yes.
said I don't know how to feel about us who completed all our qualifications in one single institution. At least you can say you went to a different department to do your PhD. Then with the PhD, then so here we are. You
Yes.
are registered. You are at Wazoa, the School of Arts, within the Department of Film and Television. The PhD, then the topic is this the same topic that you brought with you from when you had started at the other institution, or
I
thereby
think
usually, or are you now reconceptualizing? Then walk us through what the topic is actually also
yeah.
while you are at it. Yeah,
It changed a little bit, thanks to Dr. Yolo, Also don't disregard the initial work from that I received from the previous university, But obviously when I then, got supervision from Dr. Moyo, we had to refine the topic, you know what I mean? And we have to make it, bigger, than what it
mm,
initially was. Because, I know at the previous institution I was looking at financial, obviously, sustainability and funding of the SABC, but I was using a case study of the top performing shows, the top performers to see to how they can assist in bringing in revenues, but obviously, when I then went to, School of Film and Television, then Dr. Yola made me to understand that public broadcasters are not measured on high performance, they're measured on social responsibility, so your scope, it needs to be bigger than just high performance, it needs to be, inclusive in encompassing of the mandate of the public broadcaster, as whole and in its fullness, and the project then it became bigger than what I initially conceptualized, and
But sorry to cut you there, but still at the essence of it was still trying to critically sort of evaluate or explore financial survival strategies
yes,
at the SABC. Okay.
yes,
The case
yes.
study was just now bigger, broader.
We widen the net, so we
Okay,
just
okay.
we
I'm
widen the
with you.
net, so that
Yeah.
we're not excluding, other non-high performance. They're very important in terms of the mandate, in terms of nation
Yes.
building, in terms of social cohesion, in terms of democracy, education, information, and entertainment. So we have to be quite very encompassing.
Yes, yes. No, I get that. Okay. Okay, great. Then all that important work was done then to get the topic to where it is. So I'm just going to read out the title here, and then you'll tell me a little bit about some of those interesting nuggets that you'd like to walk us through.
All right.
And we'll flow from there. So yeah, the topic title is Analyzing Financial Survival Strategies for Public Service Broadcasters in Disruptive Environments, a case study of SABC and alternative funding models.
Yeah.
That in itself, the topic sentence for me, I already get a sense of, yes, get a full sense of what you set yourself out to do. So I don't know, where do we start? Instead of just framing everything theoretically, then conceptually, how do you situate it theoretically? How do you frame the study theoretically to then move with your investigation? And then we'll get to methods and so forth as well.
I just want to unpack the topic a little bit,
Please go ahead.
All right. So I think for me, the keyword is just disruptive environment, disruptive media environment. I think for me, that is a very important keyword because obviously we are looking at the SABC at a very competitive landscape, you know what I mean? And there's always disruption, I think when I was doing the study, Showmax was already in the, in the equation. Netflix was already in the equation, Amazon was landing, Prime Video was also landing as well, and there was a very huge, disruption, in the environment, and yet it was very important that the SABC kind of like therefore understand the environment that it is actually has changed, and it needs to have different strategies in order to kind of like remain relevant, and not change. I think I remember having this conversation with Dr. Yolo. I think he said to me, but well, the SABC is a broadcaster. It needs to broadcast in any way. But however, though, it needs to have strategies, for it to actually survive in this disruptive market, and also be able to be competitive, and obviously, to play like the other party, but must not compromise on its mandate. So basically, that what framed the study to say that, well, it's just a financial survival strategy, we need to know what strategies they are, there's nothing wrong about the current strategy. We need to build more to the strategy. So let's see what strategies are there, to harness revenues. And another also important keyword, harnessing revenues. It was drilled down to me by Dr. Yolo. They said, no. Public broadcasters don't make, profit. They harness revenues. So basically that what brought about obviously the topic, which was quite very, bold, clear, and very solid. Now